Statutes Amendment Bill number 4, committee stage and third reading.
I declare the House in committee for consideration of the Statutes Amendment Bill number 4. Mr. Chairman.
Mr. Speaker. The House is in committee on the Statutes Amendment Bill number 4. The question is that Part 1 stand part. Call the Honourable David Parker.
Thank you, Mr. Speaker. I would like to ask the Minister to comment on why she thinks that Part 12 of the Statutes Amendment Bill number 4, which deals with amendments to the Land Transport Act 1998, why she thinks the amendment in respect of the laws relating to the Land Transport Act and the Land Transport Management Amendment Act amendment in Part 13, which deals with land transport management, obviously, why those things are thought...
I'm sorry to interrupt them. Please be seated. I'm sorry to interrupt the member. We are discussing Part 1. Chris Hipkins.
Mr. Chairman, I seek leave for all of the questions in the Statutes Amendment Bill to be debated as one debate.
Why are you doing that, Government?
Leave is sought for that purpose. Is there any objection? There is not. The Honourable David.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I'll start again. I'm sorry about that.
Order. I'm sorry to interrupt the Speaker. The member yet again. The House is in committee on the Statutes Amendment Bill number 4. The question is that parts 1 to 33 and clauses 1 and 2 stand part.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Yes, thank you, Mr. Chairman. Well, I will make it relevant because my question is, we know that the Statutes Amendment Bill is meant to consider issues that are non-controversial. We have heard from the government time and again in the last 2 weeks that they justify the Northland election bribe in respect of bridges funding, that the reason that was done outside of the normal process for the land transport plan and outside of normal cabinet processes and outside of normal parliamentary processes was that it was uncontentious. Well, if it was uncontentious, would it meet the requirements of the Statutes Amendment Bill? And I would ask the Minister and the Chair to elucidate the principle that underlies why these amendments to Part 12 and Part 13 to land transport policy are suitable for the Statutes Amendment Bill, but the decisions that have been made in respect of $70 million of funding for bridges in the Northland, in the area of the Northland by-election are so non-controversial that they don't need to come to Parliament in any way. We have seen considerable opprobrium cast upon that decision by the newspapers, by the Fourth Estate trying to hold the government to account, as is their role, and by opposition parties, and yet we have ministers in this House standing up saying nothing untoward happened. Well, I want to know the point of principle that says that minor amendments to Part 13 and 12, and I'll show you how minor they are. They're coming through before Parliament. The amendment to Part 13 of the Land Transport Management Act changes a establishment date, or changes as a consequence of the establishment of the New Zealand Transport Agency, and the New Zealand Transport Agency is the funding body that is responsible for spending the tens of millions of dollars or the hundreds of millions of dollars that are collected from New Zealanders through excise duties and excise duty and road user charges and tolls where they're collected, and those the government has thought that it is uncontentious and therefore appropriate to include in this bill the change to Section 47 of the Land Transport Management Act 2008, which replaces the date 1 July 2008 with 1 August 2008 as a consequence of the establishment of the New Zealand Transport Agency. Now, I can understand that that's not too contentious, and that's why the Labor Party's agreed to that inclusion in the Land Transport Act, but I would like the Minister to stand and justify why if that sort of amendment requires the time of this House, why spending $70 million of taxpayers' money in an election bribe, using the power of the state to levy taxes for the advantage of a political party, overriding the provisions of plans made by the New Zealand Transport Agency in conjunction with the Regional Council in the Northland area, why that sort of overruling to spend $70 million of taxpayer money does not need some legislative authority. Mr. Speaker, I await the Minister's response.